Good morning. Good morning, my beautiful friends. This is your wake up call with Maui Paul. I am Maui Paul. We are here today to say some nice things about ourselves. I'll say thank you guys so much for being here. Good morning to you. Let's see. Good morning to you, Jan. Good morning, Donna. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning, Jelly. It is fantastic to see all of you guys around today. Thank you so much for coming by. It is always fun to come together for the purposes of saying good stuff about us and about just continuing to build into our own lives. So yeah, we're gonna do the same thing today that we do every day. I'm gonna pull a card off of my I am deck. I'm gonna ask you if you are the affirmation on the card. We are going to respond out loud together. I am that affirmation. And these cards that I'm going through right now, these are a set of you are cards, which are sort of very similar to the I am cards, except that they have a you are affirmation built into them. I talked to a lot of people about the I am deck, and one of the most common pieces of feedback that I got was that a lot of people just are not yet ready to read the words I am and think that those words are about themselves. But rather, they would think that those words are about the person who wrote them. And of course, my intention here is to get us to say these words, is for us to embody these words. And so I'm playing around with a deck of UR cards as well. So let's have some fun and let's just be reminded of who we are by taking a look at our daily reminder that you are careful, that you are careful, that you consider options and move deliberately. So you are careful, you consider options and move deliberately. Are you careful? You are careful. You consider options and move deliberately. And I am careful as well. I also consider my options and move deliberately. And I am taking my option right now to write that down in the comments, that I am careful, that I consider my options and I move deliberately. I love the map and the compass and all the fun things on this card, because I have actually. I mean, nowadays, in the days of the internet, in the days when we can have a map on our phone, so many people have never actually used a paper map. But I've actually navigated across continents with a map and a compass, and in the end, as I did that, it really did take a whole lot of deliberation in order to keep me pointed in the right direction. So I am careful. I consider options and I move deliberately. And so are you. You are also a careful person. Being careful does not mean not taking risks. Of course, anytime that we move, we take a risk. We are consistently taking risks. We're consistently letting go of what we have in our hand right now so that our hands can be empty to receive something new, something better, something different. And so we are careful people. We consider our options. Well, how can we consider our options except that we know where we're going? How can we consider our options except that we recognize that we have options? And how can we move deliberately into those options except that we have an idea of the path, that we have an idea of our own capabilities, so that when we make our steps, we are stepping surely. So I am careful today. You are careful too. And I think about all of the times that I've taken a risk in life. And some of my risks have been foolhardy, some of them have been reckless, some of them have worked out very, very well for me. Others have done others have not worked out well at all. But in the end, when I look back at all the various risks that I took, one of the core things that makes them all very similar is that I really was intentional. I really was deliberate about making the moves that I've made. Whether I made a mistake or whether I made a very good move, the fact is that I always was moving deliberately. And so I am a careful person. To be careful is to be full of care. It means to recognize where we're going, to recognize the direction that we're pointed, and to be yeah, to be very deliberate about the steps that we're taking. So I am careful. You are careful too. We consider our options and we move deliberately. And this card is our permission slip today to consider what our options are, to think about where we are right now in our lives and where we can be going. Where do we want to go from here? What would bring us the most joy as we go from here to there? And then to move slowly and deliberately and with care from where we are right now to where we desire to be. I remember that when I started to when I took my first really big trip, um, I remember that I made as much planning as I could make, but there's only so much planning that you can do when you're going across the country or across the world. And in my case, I was moving from one state to another. I wasn't a particularly experienced traveler, but I did realize that I would need to make a plan to get from here to there, a plan for how to keep gas in my car, a plan for how to lay my head in a bed every single night when I was far away from home. And the choices that I made were very deliberate choices about where I would stop, how far I would go every day, and what I would do along the way. And the reason that I made these deliberate choices, the reason that I was careful was because I desired to have a good experience. I thought to myself, I was like, I was young at the time, I was like 18, 19 years old. And but I thought to myself, I was like, I don't want to have a terrible experience here. So a tiny amount of planning is going to take me far. And indeed it did. It took me across the country. But in the end, I had to have an idea of where I was going. I had to have an idea of where I was going and what did I want my trip to look like when I got there. Ultimately, the memories that I made on any of my trips, on any of my journeys, are not the journey, are not the memory of getting to the destination. Getting to the destination meant that my trip was done. It was the journey of getting there that really brought all the benefits. It was the consideration of my options that made me grow as a person. It was it was the process of getting there that ultimately brought me the most rewards. Because once I got there, the trip was done. Once I got there, the goal was achieved. Once it's been achieved, my brain instantly started thinking about something new. But the process of achieving it and the person that I became along the way, that right there, that was the true benefit of all that I've done. And so think about it in your own life, in the context of your own life. Consider how you are being deliberate. You are considering your options and then being careful to choose the best one. How that has grown you as a person. Consider how that has changed who you are fundamentally, and consider that as that has changed who you are, that you have taken the wisdom and the knowledge that you've gained and that you have applied it, for the entire rest of your life. We can't unknow things. So I am careful today. You are careful too. We consider our options and we move deliberately. Today we are going to be presented with options. We're going to be presented with choices that are good for us. We're going to be presented with plenty of opportunity to do things that would absolutely wreck us. And so we have to be careful. We have to understand that even though we can, doesn't mean that we should. And just because something is an option about that's available to us doesn't necessarily mean that that is an option that we ought to take. That that life presents us with plenty of dead ends, and that the best thing that we can do is consider the options that we have at any given choice point, at any given juncture, and move deliberately through them. One of the journaling practices that I do is that when I make a big decision, I will write down the decision that I made and my reasoning for that decision. And many of you guys know that I very recently hosted a journal burning party where I went through and I burned several of my old journals and invited other people to do the same. And one of the things I did before I burned my journals was that I read them and I reread them for a second time. And it was very interesting looking at the decisions that I had made, the choices that I made as I had started that journaling practice several years ago. To think about, I was like, okay, hey, here's a choice that I made, and I know how it turned out because now I'm looking at that choice through the lens of many years of experience. So I know the choice. I know the short-term ramifications of that choice. I know the long-term ramifications of that choice. And it's so interesting to take a look at my own reasoning as I wrote down, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And always when it was a good choice, it was something where I had considered all of my options and then I had moved deliberately. And when it was a choice that hadn't worked out very well for me, I had perhaps considered my options. I had perhaps moved deliberately. But the fact is that I hadn't considered them particularly deeply, or I was being willfully blind to something that was right in front of my face, something that I knew was there, but just didn't really want to consider it, didn't want to consider that risk. And so as I've gotten older, I've gotten to be more careful, but not more careful insofar as that I'm unwilling to take risk, because I'm very willing to take risk. But rather, I've been careful in moving a little bit slower and considering the things that I don't want to consider, being willing to look at the stuff that I was not willing to look at when I was younger, being willing to accept the fact that I've failed in the past and that I could very well fail in the future, and to accept that, and to realize that whether the choice that I'm making today and turns out really well or really poorly, the fact is that the choices that I'm making are ultimately making me. And so the choices that you make today are making you as well. So be careful. Be careful with what you say. Be careful with how you act. Be careful with what decisions that you make, what opportunities that you cut off, and which ones you cling to. Be careful with, the people and the situations that you get yourself into. And because as we do that, as we choose to be careful, and I don't mean to not take any risks, I mean to care, to be full of care about these things, to be present to these decisions. But as we are present to these decisions, ultimately, whether they work out well for us or not, at least we will always be able to say that we became a better person as a result of the choices that we've made. We're going to be presented with 1,000 choices today. Some of them are going to be meaningful. Some of them are not going to be meaningful. But all of them are going to affect who we become. And we have a right to ourselves. We have an obligation to ourselves to continue to become the best version of us that could possibly be. So I am careful today. You are careful too. Let's consider our options and move deliberately through life. Yeah, I want to say thank you guys all so much for being here. It is wonderful to see you. So again, thank you so much for being here, Jan and Donna and Lauren and Jelly. Wonderful always to see you girls here today. Let's see here. It is wonderful to see you here, Shauna, and I know that a couple other folks have come here. Hello, Tony. Hello, Dan. Good to see you here today as well. Hello, Val. Wonderful to see you. Yes, all of us wonderful people. Let's see here. Yeah, so a couple people have weighed in on this. Tony says that she always moves deliberately, and I do consider options, but not necessarily slowly. And that's okay. There are definitely some times where we need to make a snap decision. Ultimately, the choices that we've made throughout our whole lives inform the snap decisions that we make and allow us to make better ones. I've made some snap decisions that have turned out very, very well for me. I've also made some snap decisions that have turned out really, really awful for me. It just depends. But the fact is that as I've continued to go through life, the choices that I make, the quality of the choices that I make has been going up and up and up, thanks to the experience that I have from making choices that were not particularly good for me. Jan says, making decisions from a place of care for yourself and others instead of from a place of fear or manipulation is epic. Yeah, amen to that. And so many of the choices that are made for us in life, which I like to call the default life, but life on default settings, so many of the choices that are made for us by our societal norms, or by the people who are around us who made choices for us even as we were children, those choices were in many cases made from a spirit of fear. You bring up such a good point, Jan, that that so many of the choices that we've made, or that the default options that are open to us in life, come from a place of fear or manipulation. And yet when we start to make choices from a spirit of our own personal sovereignty, that the choices that we make from there, the choices that we make after we know what is good for us, those choices are so, so much better. So I am careful today. You are careful too. So yeah, let's consider our options today and move deliberately. My friends, I will return tomorrow at 9 a.m. with another one of these messages. Until then, I want to say thank you guys so, so very much for being here. Thank you for thank you for joining in, for commenting on the stream, for sharing it, and for just generally expanding the potential of this message. You guys are amazing. I believe that the world is a better place when more people consider what their options are and then move deliberately. When more people are willing to overcome the fear it's necessary to overcome in order to make a choice, and together as we really embody these traits inside of ourselves, we have the ability to change the world. So let's go forth and do that. The people who are bold enough to change the world are the ones who do. So I will return tomorrow at 9 a.m. with yet another one of these cards. Until then, this is your daily reminder that I love you, that I care about you, that I think you're an amazing person, that I believe everything I say about you just as I believe I say it about me, because I recognize that you are a reflection of me, that you reflect my best parts right back at me. And I hope that I reflect your best parts right back at you. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. It has been fantastic to see you today. I see you come in here at the end here, Kelly and Eric. Wonderful to have you guys here. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Aloha from paradise.